welcome to attempt 3 at video 6 of 6 of the Roman Army 2021 UofW lecture on military organization. In the latest attempt at video 6, I'm going to say a little bit about military organization in late antiquity. It covers many centuries, and there are some big changes, bigger than before at any time. But, I can't speak to you for hours, so we'll try to keep this short and sweet. Get rid of my face and get to it. Right, unit organization in late antiquity. Oh, my face is hiding behind the glorious slides. I'm going to make a little tweak. Okay, in action. Well, you can see the magic happen. Right, so this is roughly when Flavius Aemilianus was alive. Okay, he was in one of these new units. It's all very mysterious. Well, less mysterious. Some things are more mysterious, other things are less mysterious. This is just me, so losing my mind. Water leaking. Repairs locked in the house. Okay, so here is the later Roman Empire, a map of it in 395 CE. This is after Flavius' time, but Aemilianus' time, but it gives you a sense of the big changes that have taken place, or big changes administratively, and in terms of organization. So the empire, you could sort of split in half, and you have the western half and the eastern half, and they now have much of the territory is the same, minus Dacia, as the ones I've showed you in the earlier videos for this lecture, but there are more provinces. They subdivide them into much smaller ones, and there are also big dioceses, not the church ones yet. These are large administrative units. And then there's all these other changes. So some big changes to how the empire is run. More emperors, it's all happening. Okay, so what else can we say? When we look at the evidence for unit organization in antiquity, we have different things from before. So if you remember when I talked about legions, I said one of the main bodies of evidence, at least for discussing where they were and how they changed or moved, was things like Tacitus' Annals, Cassius Dio, and inscriptions. And then for auxiliary units, we have diplomas, these sort of citizen, sort of passport-like size things. So late antiquity, there are fewer inscriptions, still a lot, but fewer of a kind that we had before. And there are historians still, I mean, as Marcellinus. But we mostly have this wonderful document called the Notitia Dignitatum list of offices, which is a large list of imperial officials and units and so on. It might sound kind of boring. Probably for a lot of people it is. But it's a fascinating thing. We don't know entirely how it was made, when it was made. There are two parts to it. There's an eastern part and a western part to correspond to the two parts of the empire. The eastern part dates to about 395, the western part to about 420. The 395 eastern part, it seems to be pretty accurate for that year, based on studies that have looked into the specific situation in Egypt, for which we have good evidence. The western one is a little more wishy-washy. Who it was for, what it was by, and blah, 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 is harder to say. Other interesting things about this document, I went to a major conference about it just before COVID, did its thing, and it gave me more questions and answers, but it's just, there are many different things you can do with it. It also has all these illustrations, okay, and you can see one copy of them here. So the oldest manuscript copies of it that we have, which are not super old, a few hundred years old, they have illustrations, and they're slightly different each one depending on where they are in various libraries in Europe, but it seems that the original probably had these as well. So there's just other aspects to this thing. But as I said, it has a list of the different units, and it gives you some sense of how the military had changed. Okay, now as far as what these changes are and how it all plays out, so where we still have legions and auxiliaries, but they are subdivided into different divisions, okay, and we get two main kinds of soldiers in late antiquities, at least in the 4th century, more or less. So now we have these guys called comitatenses, who are field army soldiers. Okay, and the field armies, there are a few of them. In theory, they can sort of move around parts of the empire depending on need. Many of the units that make up the field armies are some of the same ones from before, and there are some new ones as well. And then there's the frontier soldiers, Limitani. There's some other names as well, and they are usually fixed to the frontiers, responsible for sort of border things, so far as we know. Again, those frontier soldiers, the Limitani, would be enrolled in some of the same units we know from before, just maybe smaller and some new ones thrown in the mix. And the field army soldiers would be led by a count, a comes, and the frontier soldiers by a duke, a dux, in Latin. The highest ranking officers were now the magister militum, master of soldiers, and there was one for the east and west, and then there were more of them, so sort of super generals in a way that hadn't existed before, save for emperors. But there were still bodyguards, even if the praetorians were gone. There were palatini, like Aemilianus. There were scoli, sort of a type, sort of a unit. And we get masters of soldiers at the top, and so on and so forth. So some big changes, some things are similar. Okay, so as far as the range of new different kinds of units that we see, and using Aemilianus as examples, well, he has something called a cornuti. Okay. Some say it's more specifically a group of people from, let's say, Central Europe, but maybe more of a unit type. In the Notitia, it lists lots of legions. Okay, some of these legions are frontier legions. Some of these are comitatances legions, and other variations. So we still get these legions and auxiliaries. And here again is another one of the illustrations from one of the manuscripts. This case for Palestine, you see some forts which are named. Gives us a sense, and that they also be listed in the document. But we also get, we get auxilii, which are kind of like the original ones. And we get ally and cohortes, which are kind of like the original ones. But then we also get equites, which existed at a different capacity before. Now we get things called wedges, which is, almost like theory, the shape of the kind of unit. And vexillationes, which existed before too, vexillations. But vexillations were little subunits created depending on circumstances, whereas these ones are more specific. If you have questions, just let me know. So there's all the different kinds of units that could be sort of divided into the frontier versus field army division. Okay, and that gives you some idea of the kinds of units we find in late antiquity. It is a big and complicated, and it changes again, but that gives you some idea. That's it for now.